So here's some more things that you might want to know this week. We're almost at the end of the second week, which means you're almost halfway finished with this class. Halfway. That's pretty amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened during the first week. Everyone turned in their papers. That is great. A few of you need to still learn how to do footnotes. Footnotes are going to be really important for this second paper that you're about to turn in, or some of you have turned in already, because in order to integrate your sources with the other people in the group, you all have to be able to do the footnote kind of sourcing. So it works really well with a group paper to be able to do footnotes. You need to be able to do good research. A few of you, I ask you questions about your sources, and you can see kind of what I was looking for with that. In general, people did well on this, and so I think you should be encouraged. So that's what you need to pay attention to. You just have 2 more films after this week and 2 more papers. So hang in there, but it is a fair amount of work, because when you finish this course, you will have written 20 pages, at probably around that, of research work. So you'll have done the equivalent of a 20-page research paper. So just take into account that I know you're doing a lot of work, and you're fulfilling the junior cornerstone kind of things that you need to do. Let me tell you a little bit more about what happened with the films last week and this week. Last week's film was a silent film. Usually silent films have organ music in the background. So originally silent films, the reason they were silent is they didn't have a way to do the sound, and they would send out pages of music for people to play on the organ or piano in the local theater. So one person was sitting there, or sometimes they traded off, but usually one person is sitting there during the whole film playing a very long musical score. And there were little clues to make sure they were kind of at the right place, so that certain parts of the organ especially can sound like sound effects. So that was the live part of the silent movie. In our film, they put in some music in the background kind of to have part of that, but you can see kind of how that works in a silent film. So that's a little bit of your film history. The film that you just watched, The Gospel According to St. Matthew, was done in the early 1960s. By then, color film had been available for at least 30 years. But the reason that it was originally done in black and white, I think most of you watched a colorized version, but it was originally done in black and white because the director, who is also the screenwriter, he is Pasolini, Pier Paolo Pasolini, what a great Italian name. He was tired of what was going on in Hollywood and kind of the way Hollywood was also influencing film in Europe, and he wanted to do a very un-Hollywood version of Jesus. And so he picked people all who were non-actors. None of the people acting, as you might have noticed, were not usually actors. You can kind of tell for a whole bunch of different ways that they were non-actors, but especially that they sort of they didn't have beautiful teeth. They looked very kind of craggy and authentic. That's what he was looking for. Now, the downside of that is that sometimes they weren't really great actors, but that was kind of what he was looking for. The film looks like it's kind of in the Middle East, but it's also influenced by Italy in the early 1960s. Some of the hairstyles, for example, part of the time the person playing Jesus has his hair kind of slicked back. He looks like he's in the mafia. He also just has one giant eyebrow. I know. He's got the unibrow, and everybody goes, what is up with that? On the other hand, one of the things that people find really interesting about this film is that all of the words are taken right from the Gospel of Matthew. Everything is just quoted from the Gospel of Matthew, which is part of the reason sometimes it seems kind of choppy. He also had a longer version of the film that I could have assigned that you would have been there for another hour, but I thought that was kind of like punishment. But he did his own shorter version. So he's the one who edited it to this version that was about 90 minutes for you. And so I just wanted you to know that was his own decision-making from the early 1960s. If you're not the person who did the story about Pasolini for your paper, you might want to go back and read that section of the paper if you didn't read the whole paper, if you only kind of read your section, because Pasolini had a really interesting life. This film was considered, by the end of the 20th century, this was considered to be, from the Vatican, from the viewpoint of the Catholic Church, the best film about Jesus that had been made. Now, more films have been made in the 21st century, but that's what they thought was the best film at that point. When you look at Pasolini's life, you'll think, how could a person with that life make this film. But there's a lot of different reasons for that, and makes for interesting reading to go back and see some things about his life, including he was killed under mysterious circumstances. So, interesting stuff. One of the things he also put in the film that was unusual, he put some African American spiritual music from the United States. He put some classical music, things that people hadn't been traditionally doing in films. And as I said, he originally filmed it in black and white. He also used what looks to us like handheld cameras. Their cameras were enormous, so they were actually shoulder held at that time. But he was trying to get the feeling that you were part of the crowd. Sometimes that works, and sometimes it's a little clumsy. But if you think back to the scene where Jesus is before Pilate and some of the leaders out in that kind of courtyard, and you're supposed to feel like you're in the crowd. As a matter of fact, sometimes you can't quite see around the people in front of you. That's the feeling he was trying to get there. Your next film will be a musical, so a very different style. We're moving forward in time by about 10 years, so you're going to be in the early 70s, and so you'll see what Jesus is like portrayed by people doing musicals in the United States in the early 1970s. So that's what you should look forward to next. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to send me an email. Otherwise, think things are right on target, and keep doing good work. And for next week, if you found it really hard to do your paper until the last minute, you're going to want to do it a little sooner than that, because you drive all the other people in your group a little crazy. And they need to have time. Somebody needs to have time to do an introduction and conclusion and put it all together. So if you tend to be a late person, think about that. If you tend to be doing your work right after the assignment comes out on Friday morning, you can see the assignment for the following week. If you tend to be a person who does that immediately and you're sitting there, waiting for the people to do their work, try to take a deep breath and calm down. And if somebody doesn't do their work by the following Friday, send me an email and we'll work it out, because I'm not trying to drive you crazy. It's just kind of I know it's a difficult exercise sometimes to work in groups, especially online. You don't get to see each other. So again, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.